Gunshot survivors of Reddit, what does it feel like to get shot? I took a 7.62 to the stomach in Afghanistan. Felt like somebody had smacked with I dunno, a fly swatter or something. A short sharp smack. Didn't feel much until I tried to come out of cover and I just couldn't make my body listen to me. Then the pin hit. I'd put it at like an 11 out of 10. Bullet blew off half my liver. It's funny, I figured since I was missing half my liver I would get drunk faster. Nope. I just stay drunker for longer. Waking up drunk is not a good feeling. I have to be way more aware of the toxins and everything I put in myself, because I can't process it out of me. Otherwise? Between that and the 2 IEDs I rolled over in Kandahar, the army considers me 90% disabled. My partner likes to joke that I have tapioca brain, and that if I move my head too fast she can see the pudding coming out your ears. I don't sleep too well, I'm afraid of fireworks. I hate being touched by anyone that isn't my partner, my sister, or a longtime friend. I drink too much. I have terrible nightmares of my guts spilling out on the ground, and whatever I try I can't get them back in. Don't join the army, kids. Join the Coast Guard or Air Force. Humping a mortar around is a good way to F yourself up, and when you get out there ain't poop for you but a bottle and a bullet. Chest, .357 Magnum, through sternum, lung, ricochet off of rib, through scapula. Still have half under my should blade. Felt like I was stabbed in the chest with a hot fire poker mounted to the bottom of someone's foot when they drop kicked me. Was not expected to survive, severe blood loss, of course. Very good EMS team kept the liquids where they were supposed to and great doctors and nurses kept me going. Was at a friend's house. We hung out there once in a while. His parents were friends with all of us, so we'd go over there and hang out, have dinner, etc. We were all hunters and teenagers, so being around guns wasn't really something that alerted anyone. Kid was having a conversation with someone else in the group about a firearm his father, the deputy sheriff, had on the top of the hutch. He brought it downstairs and was holding it rather nonchalantly while talking. He wasn't looking at me whatsoever. The guy he was talking to asked him if it was loaded. He cocked the hammer back, which is what got my attention at that point, and pulled the trigger. He was very much not expecting it to go off. Upstairs he had been stopped by my friend and told to empty it. He opened the cylinder, shook the gun, bullets came out, he handed them over to my buddy, sponged the cylinder, and walked downstairs. He didn't count that only 5 fell out. Anyway, after I got shot I stood up and screamed at him, "You shot me, man. Why the F did you shoot me?" And I then ran up the stairs from the basement, ran to the front porch and collapsed after telling the guy he was talking to that I was going to fall. Thankfully they all kind of ran along with me. When they heard what I was shot with and where, they were very surprised that my arm was even still attached to my body as of the nasty hollow point designed to shred. I was very fortunate that it was so close, 7 feet, and that only half of it made it all the way through. Spent a long time screaming myself awake at night, or more accurately waking everyone else up who then woke me up. Years of therapy for the PTSD, depression, etc. It's real poop. I do not recommend. I didn't really feel either of mine until about 10 minutes later. Took a grazing shot off my left arm and one in the right hip that went out my back, thankfully missing my kidney. The arm felt like a bee sting, the hip knocked me back a step. The adrenaline at the time masked the pain. I was in the 75th Ranger Regiment that landed at the airport in Panama. 13 years ago at age 14 I was shot by a home intruder 5 times with a .38 revolver. 3 rounds hit my abdomen, 1 hit my left forearm, and the final hit my left thigh. I was woke up by commotion in the living room. I thought it was my sibling getting home late from a friend's house, so I went to get water in the kitchen. That's when the guy saw me, panicked, and proceeded to dump the entire cylinder of his revolver into me from 10 feet away. At first it felt like someone jabbing me with a hot poker, the most painful one actually being my arm right away. The ones to my leg and stomach starting to hurt far more after maybe a minute or two, not sure since the event felt like it took an hour from start to finish. My sense of time when it comes to remembering the shooting is very distorted to this day by what happened. The guy got away before anyone got to me, my parents were out of town, and like I said my brother was at a friend's house. Luckily a neighbor called 911 within minutes of it happening and I was taken to the ER. It was during the ambulance ride that the pain really hit me, a sharp, hot pain took over me, every bump feeling like each spot was getting punched over and over again. Before they started operating to remove the 3 rounds still in my abdomen it felt like my guts were being torn out of me by hand. From there I don't remember the next 5 days of my life. I fell into a short coma due to the pain. I was hooked up to more tubes than I could count when I woke up, giving me fluids, pain meds, antibiotics, sucking out stomach bile and other fluids to keep my digestive tract clear to heal. All there was pain-wise was a very dull pain everywhere. It hurt the most to breathe, each breath feeling like an intense pressure on my gut. From here my memory is still hazy due to the amount of pain meds I was on to keep me calm. During the healing process we found out I had developed Crohn's disease, which the doctors figure was lying dormant my entire life and only flared up due to the extreme stress my body went through in a short period. This caused my abdomen area to heal improperly, causing me to go through a long drawn-out ordeal with the disease before finally having to end up with a permanent colostomy setup. 13 years later it's my reminder of what happened that night, why I now sleep with a handgun near me, wake up with night terrors of the event, and sometimes get scared if there's a noise in the middle of the night. The person who shot me was never caught as far as I know, and in the end nothing was even stolen from my parents' house. To this day I'm glad no one was home. I'm not sure I could live with a reality where one of my family was shot instead of me that night, or them having to find me after it had happened. I was shot during a home robbery. I'm probably one of the luckiest people alive. The bullet, no joke, scratched my cheek and then went through the top of my ear, and also a bullet grazed my wrist and opened it up. I didn't feel anything but just liquid running down my face and my wrist was burning. Scariest night of my life, and R.I.P. Christian. Miss you so much, buddy. Here is what the report said. Authorities said Burke and Brandon Fries, 21, fought the suspects for their guns, which were fired during the struggle. The two masked men fled, and investigators initially did not have any information about which direction they went or whether they escaped from the scene by car. Both Burke and Fries had been shot and were transported to Herman Memorial Hospital in Katy. Burke was pronounced dead upon arrival at the emergency room, less than 4 miles away. Got shot point blank in the chest with a .22 rifle. 2 people were arguing. I was 16 years old relaxing on a couch. They were 18, and to this day I thought I knew them, but I think they were up to some shady stuff when I was in the shower. 41 now and I've thought about it many times. Anyway, the 2 were screaming at each other who's tougher. One was going to the Navy, the other to the Marines. One said, "If you're so tough, shoot our friend." At that, he went in the room and grabbed the only gun we had along on the trip. It was a weekend mountain/camp trip to the cabin. We were shooting cans and left 1 round in the chamber, only bullet we kept to line all the cans up on the log before we left and do 1 shot through them all. He pulled the trigger, I lost my breath, ears started ringing, and I was trying to get up, but it felt like a wet blanket was on my chest down to my legs. I looked down, and a ½ inch from my heart was a tiny hole with 1 single drop of blood trail coming from it. Dude ran to a pay phone, as this was before cell phones were common, and dialed 911. Ambulance was there in 6 minutes, which still amazes me, considering where we were. End result, bullet was lodged in my spine. They removed it 2 days later. Paralyzed incomplete. Wheelchair bound from the chest down. I got shot in the ankle when I was 10. Honestly, I thought a rock hit me. Just a slight stinging feeling. Didn't really hurt, I even kept running with my bike. Later at the hospital was a different story. The doctor tried to remove the bullet without putting me under. He said the pain medicine would make me forget everything. He gave up after a few minutes of hell. And, whatever he gave me didn't work as described, but it did oddly make everyone look purple from what I remember. So maybe it half worked? Right thigh, 9mm, grazing shot across the front of the leg about 4 inches above the knee. It plowed a channel of skin and some flesh off the front. It felt searing hot, like someone had laid a hot piece of metal on my leg for a second. Then, the pain went away for a while until the adrenaline wore off. It honestly hurt worse 6 hours later than it did when it happened. I was shot with a .22 in the back. The initial shot hit my vertebrae and paralyzed me from the waist down. I literally just stiff-legged and fell backwards. I then felt a hot wave run down my back into my butt. Then the searing pain set in. It was excruciating and I literally screamed and swore the whole time. When someone asks the level of pain I was in, I tell them to think of the worst pain they've experienced and times that by 100. The pain and realization that I couldn't move my legs was just heartbreaking and I just wanted out. 3 years later and lots of intense physical therapy, I have gained a lot of movement and function back. I can walk with the aid of a foes and crutches, but still need a wheelchair at home and for long distances. How I was shot: I was on private property shooting with friends. We stopped shooting and I went down range to change something. My friend decided that was the time to try and unload his .22 revolver, and as he pointed it down range he somehow pulled the trigger and shot me. I don't know what possessed him to do that, as even if the gun was loaded nothing would happen if you don't touch the gun, but he did. Being in the middle of nowhere, it took about a half hour for an ambulance to come, then a life flight to the nearest hospital. I'm lucky the bullet hit the vertebrae as it stopped it from going into organs and bleeding out. Oddly enough, there wasn't much blood and wound management was very minimal. And yes, he is still my friend. I forgave him and he definitely has suffered mentally for it, and he doesn't deserve more pain either. I was shot in the leg. It felt like a hard flick of a finger, then numbness. I didn't think I was shot until I saw the hole in my pants. Even then I thought maybe a rock hit me or something. No pain or blood until I started walking, then came a gush of blood and then my entire body went limp. People saw what happened, so I had help right away. After that it hurt, but somewhere around a 6 to 7 on a scale of 10. Another time I was hit by a fragment from a ricochet on my forehead. Same feeling of being flicked with a finger. The area around the wound went white and there was no blood. The pain level was around a 5. Neither time was bad, but I don't want to try my luck again. I was randomly shot while walking down the street with my girlfriend in 2013. I didn't fall to the ground or anything like that. Walked into a store and told them to call the cops. It didn't hurt too bad at first. A slight pinch. The heat builds up and the pain comes in. Some throbbing as the blood pumps out. I was extremely lucky as the bullet lodged between my lower right ribs in the back just above my kidney. The aftermath was a really atchy back. What I remember most was how everyone around me except for my girlfriend just walked around us like nothing happened. I was suffering and potentially dying and everyone just ignored it. Not my problem, I suppose. I lost a lot of faith in people that day. I accidentally discharged my 9 and I was hit in the head. While it was going on I honestly did not feel any pain, but everything slowed way down. Healing and recuperating was the hardest. My mouth and jaw were wired shut for several months. Had to have complete facial reconstruction surgery. Had to take a piece of bone from my skull and graft it to my nose just so I could have a nose. I also had to have a feeding tube for almost a whole year. I've recovered fully and am very lucky. I remember mostly everything. Some things from the incident I don't remember, but for the most part, I have my memories intact. I was shot when I was 9. I didn't feel anything at first because my mind was in fight or flight mode and my only focus was dialing 911 and saving my mother. I only started feeling the immense stinging/burning sensation when I was loaded into the ambulance. I want to say it's as if you had a hot iron shoved through you. I was shot with a .45 caliber. I survived multiple gunshot wounds. One shattered my elbow, it swung in the wrong direction, and another damaged a nerve, rendering me being unable to move my foot up along with loss of feeling throughout my entire leg. My mother unfortunately passed away at the scene. I'm doing well now, although I still deal with PTSD, it's much less. This was over 11 years ago that we fell victim to a home invasion. The perpetrator was caught and has life in prison, no parole. I had the option to choose the death penalty. However, I felt I would have been cheated if he didn't have to suffer. Wish I knew. I have no memory of the event. I had gotten off the rail and was waiting at a bus stop with my GF when I was struck by a stray bullet. It entered around my right shoulder and splintered across to my lower left shoulder. Ended up giving me a spinal cord injury, leaving me paralyzed from the chest down, unfortunately. I just don't like the fact that my GF has to live with that memory by herself. Long story short, it effing hurts. For years, decades in my case. It was through the chest just below my heart, it exited through my back, cracking vertebrae. When the shots were fired, no one knew what had happened, including me. It sounded like someone lit firecrackers in the bar and I thought some piece of that hit me in the chest. Felt like someone tapped me really hard in the middle of the chest. I was still sitting at the bar and apparently said to the woman next to me, "Did I just get shot?" before falling off the stool. I didn't feel much pain for a while as I was essentially dying, bleeding out on the floor, all those death and trauma chemicals in high gear. I was approaching death for the first time during this and I felt like I was given a choice to live or die. When I chose to live, that's when the worst pain I couldn't even imagine started. I've always had a pretty high threshold for pain, but I was audibly screaming, which is apparently a good sign. In the ambulance, apparently I kept thanking them and telling them how much I appreciated them. They needed to inject a valve into my chest to release the pressure. They asked if I was ready. I remember I said, "Please, effing do it." And when they did, so much pain was released. The next days were pain through my entire body, ICU, drugs, wake up to pain through my entire body, surgery, constantly thanking the amazing hospital staff, pain, and lastly, pain. I've suffered from chronic pain my entire life since, and I'm one of the lucky ones. I didn't die, I wasn't paralyzed, I didn't get addicted to painkillers. But I suffer from pain to this day, both physical and emotional, which is also physical. To this day, approaching 2 decades after the fact, I sometimes will just sneeze and it locks up my ribs that were broken, and it was the same type of pain I had in my months of physical recovery. Stuff like that really triggers my PTSD and I'm useless, both practically and in my head. I can barely walk when that happens. Everyone's experience with being shot is different, so I'm not speaking for any other survivors. I was hit twice during separate tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. The first time the round caught the armor plate and felt like I had been hit with a baseball bat. It knocked the wind out of me, and when we got back to base I had a huge bruise on my chest. It hurt to breathe for a few days, and getting dressed was a fair, but I got light duty during that time. The second time a round clipped the side of my neck. Now that one really hurt and there was a lot of blood. Think of your worst razor nick times 10, but the pain was cut by the adrenaline. Back of my left leg with a low caliber round. I was walking home from school and someone drove by and shot me. I remember hearing a high-pitched whistle and then a snap sensation in my leg. At first, I didn't have a clue what happened. It felt like someone took a willow switch and snapped it in the back of my leg. Didn't really hurt. Just surprise. I looked over my shoulder and didn't see anyone. I went to continue walking then and went to step on the leg. I felt something move out of my leg and then it went numb, which made me fall down since I was expecting my leg to support me. The feeling of something moving was the slug sliding out of my leg as my jeans pulled tight on my leg. The bullet didn't actually pierce my jeans. Just took them into my leg with it. This is why I think it had to be low caliber. I feel like I should have submitted the story to Levi Jeans and tell them their jeans were bulletproof. I know absolutely zero about guns, bullets, caliber and whatnot. This is me saying that I said low caliber thinking that meant not very powerful. It would seem I misspoke there. Sorry. Right eye, .40 caliber hollow point blank range. I felt nothing but instant confusion. My ears were ringing and I could not form a cohesive thought. After I saw the gun barrel smoking, I finally started to realize I had just been shot. I wasn't sure where I had been hit because you don't realize that you are currently blind in one eye because you see the look of horror on the person who just shot you's face perfectly fine with your one remaining eye. I looked down to see if there was a hole in my chest and only realized I had been shot in the eye when I began to feel around my face with my hands, only to have my fingers slip into the warm jello cup that is now my right eye socket. Paramedics on the way, I fall to the floor and start throwing up a ton of blood. My friends are nowhere to be found as they have plenty of paraphernalia to dispose of before the police arrive, so I have the pleasure of wallowing in my own blood and crying out for someone to comfort me as I'm sure I am about to take my final breaths. After what feels like an hour, firefighters arrive. I inform them I have hemophilia factor 9 and promptly pass the F out.